Hi, my name is Carlo Barbieri. I work in the Engine Connectivity Engineering group, and today we're going to introduce the Wolfram Web Engine.
Okay, hi, I'm Carlo, and today we're going to introduce Wolfram Web Engine, or WWE. Basically, this is the outline of the talk. I'm gonna first explain what it isn't, what it is, what the architecture is, how to use it, where to deploy it, and then I'm gonna answer some questions if there are any. This is not going to be a terribly technical talk because it's more of like the introduction of new product. So basically, I'm gonna speak more about its features than how the sausage is made. So WWE, it's kind of an unfortunate acronym, but it's very important that we stress that we do not support any gratuitous violence. On the other hand, this is the real thing. So Wolfram Web Engine is standards-based. It's built on top of the Java servlet interface. So since Java runs on, there was a huge spike of devices on which Java runs. Recently, it was like 3 billion for the longest time. And now if you install Java, it says like 13 now. So it's great, it runs on a bunch of different places. We have been developing it with Tomcat, but the servlet interface is very generic, and it's not just Tomcat. So I think the bigger limitation is really whether you can run a kernel alongside it, so rather than Java. Interestingly, this is like the successor of Web Mathematica, work done by Tom maybe 20 years ago, and then Todd. So I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and we've added support for more modern deployments, not just JSP, but also APIFunction, FormFunction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So since it's based on Java servlet interface, you basically have the keys of this thing. It's fully modular and configurable. If you want to run it alongside other Java-based web apps, you can. If you wanna, you can put it on a server where there is another thing running alongside it, maybe your own database, and there's another web app that uses, I don't know, Django. You can do that. We don't have users out of the box, but there is no reason why you can't do that yourself. So for example, there's one thing I'm gonna show you, like Tomcat has security constraints. And so you can give it URL patterns and then connect it to an LDAP database. And by just using stuff that we haven't done, but the Apache Foundation has done, you can get more security and logging capabilities without, it's just if you use standards, then you can extend the thing by using open source technology and etc. Sure. So I'm going to repeat the question. Itai wants to know what no user means. It means that it's not the cloud, really. So you don't have to make an account to log into it. The way it works is that at the bare minimum, this is just one API endpoint, and whoever can access that URL can do the computation on the API. But you can put security constraint through Tomcat, or you can put it behind a proxy of some sort, whatever you want, because it's based on standards. There are currently no limitation on the Wolfram language functionality. That means no sandboxing, you can run things like run process and start something else. You can do run process of rm-rf and then destroy your whole server. If you're like accepting unsanitized external user input, that stuff is going to happen to you, and we're not here to save you. So it's a product for grown-ups. But you can really do whatever you want. It doesn't support cloud notebooks. If you want cloud notebooks, get an EPC or the public cloud. And that part I said, you can install it alongside other stuff, which we don't encourage you to do if you don't need it, because obviously, since it's very unrestricted, you can go and delete the rest. And ouch, this is gonna be like every slide I'm gonna get shocked. Okay, so. First thing, we've revamped service deploy that was introduced for Wolfram Web Engine. I personally find that, sorry, that was interesting for Wolfram Application Server. I personally find that the version of service deploy that came with Wolfram Application Server was a bit, let's say, it's not Wolfram language enough in that instead of giving you first the automatic stuff, you always had to support like a big association stuff saying this is the endpoint, this is the node, blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, this is much closer to how cloud deploy works. So basically the way it works is, let's see if I have this. No, it's okay. It's not. Let me start it. So this is gonna look, where is it? Bin. So this is so you can really see it's for grown-ups, right? Catalina run, and then you see all this. Yeah, it looks a bit like the Matrix. It's cool. It makes me look more like a hacker, but it's okay. So once you start the thing, then you can service connect to it. And I mean, since it's still in the same session, it didn't ask me for the password, but I set up a security constraint, and it has username and password. In this case, it's basic auth, basic HTTP auth. But since Tomcat supports more than that, you want to use LDAP, you can set up a security realm and make it talk to your LDAP database or whatever. So once you've done that, you can do a service deploy of something. I hope the server is up. This will create a UUID if you haven't provided a URL, and you can go visit this. I hope that the kernels, the kernels are warmed up. So this is now running locally on my machine. And basically, so you can do it anonymously. You can give it a name. Then you do this and you say champagne, and you get eventually a map of champagne. I mean, this still has to talk to like the geotile servers are not on my machine, so it's not going to be super fast because of APIs, not because of me. Actually, let me check on what Wi-Fi I am. Yeah, so yeah, you see this is Champagne and next to it Urbana. You can deploy files. So in this case, sorry, static resources. So in this case, this is like a random image that we have deployed, and basically it figures out what, just like export from the URL, it says .png and it figures out the format, or you can actually send the whole file. Let's see if this works. Taking a picture of me right now, current image, and boom, it's on the server. So, and then you, and this is new. I mean, it's not new because it worked in the cloud 7 years ago, but it was never supported on Wolfram Application Server. And I think it's kind of an important feature. So this is URL dispatcher. And for this, I'm reusing probably the most controversial presentation we've done at WTC. We did it with Ricardo in 2015. It's a Vatican website. We've received many complaints that this was disrespectful. Apparently the image of the Pope doesn't work anymore. But let's see if we have older popes. Yes. So, and this supports things like a form to write an email to the Pope, or directions to the Vatican. Let's pick something like that is on the same continent. Let's say Sofia, Bulgaria, and it's going to compute travel directions to the Vatican from Bulgaria. So this is okay, so this is supports all the things that the cloud does except for notebooks. So all the form pages and even multi-step forms, uploading files and saving them, again, it's your own machine. So if you want to let users put like gigabyte size files on your machine, there's no limits on that stuff. You actually have to set them up yourself. Okay, so the thing I'm showing right now, it's running on bare metal. It's running on my machine. The way you do that is you use your favorite package manager. I'm using brew here. You do brew install Tomcat, then you figure out what it was installed, and then you just have to copy a war or a directory over there. It's the way you usually install this kind of servlet things. What happens is then you get a folder like this. And in this folder, you can see the deployments we had. So for example, in the resources folder, you can see my selfie that I took earlier. And here there's stuff like, delayed now that we were looking at earlier. The Vatican thing is kind of big. So it's an MX file because it has the same, I don't know if we've ever talked about this in Cloud Talks, but basically for optimization reasons, where you're deploying something that is quite large, it makes more sense to load it as an MX rather than to parse the whole .m or .wl plain text language file. So it's way more efficient to load an MX. So yeah, this is all very standard, stuff. It's in a folder. What's the advantage of it being in a folder? That since you are all adults, you can take this and rsync it to another server, or you can use something like a GitHub repo, or not hub necessarily, a Git repo where you have your deployment, and whenever you're ready to do a new release, you can set up continuous integration because it's a folder. It's not like something opaque that's sitting somewhere else. We're using files. And like, again, this stuff is like, some of you have been users of, long-time user of Web Mathematica. These XML files contain things I don't know if you can read, but like tell you how many kernels I have available, which Mathematica version 2.2. This stuff hasn't changed from Web Mathematica, and the Web XML stuff is bog standard servlet specification. So you can set up here the various security constraints and whether what URLs point to what servlet if you want to use. So for example, images are not served by our servlet, they're served by the default Tomcat servlet. So standards all the way down. Yeah, so I said that. You can also, I think something that is very interesting is that you can iteratively build your web app by using service deploy, which has the advantage of bringing over the definitions in the exact same way that Cloud Object, Cloud Deploy, Cloud Publish does. So you get the exact same behavior. It's the same code path. So once you've built an app that works and you're confident with all the definitions, etc., then you can use that and rsync it somewhere else, for example. So it's kind of a hybrid way of doing things. Docker. Everybody likes to use Docker nowadays. We have a Docker image. So like there's some I'm going to launch this and I'm going to try and unpack this a little bit for you. So here I have two open ports. One is the debug port. That's the 8000. And that means that, well, you probably won't do that, but I can attach a remote debugger to the a remote JVM. And the other one is the port 8081 is the port on which I'm going to serve that maps to internal port 80. Then -v, those are volumes. So one thing that I'm doing is that I'm basically sharing the licensing information with a folder that is on my file system. And so when the Docker gets invoked, I don't have to modify the container to have the licensing information. I'm just syncing a folder with it. And the same thing I'm doing with the web app. So what that means is that even though this thing is running in a container, I will still have a local folder where all the deployments go. And so if I want to then take that and rsync it somewhere else, etc., the folder is just a volume. So I don't modify the container at all in this case, though you can with Docker Compose if you want to create another container. But if I just want to keep reusing the same container and serving different stuff, I can, just go with an editor and change the files. And this is what I'm gonna. So let's connect to this one on 8081. And again, it remembers the password. Let's see. So this is going to be a little bit slower because I have one of the new ARM Macs, and this is like I did this based on the Wolfram Engine container that is already on Docker Hub, and that only works on AMD64 for now, but that's going to change, especially if you make noise with the. So So it's a little bit slower, and I just set it up, so the kernels are still warming up. So this might take a little longer than it did for the other one. Yeah, but in general, what I wanted to show you in the meantime is that there's like the date. How do I get the date thing that doesn't have an extension? It's a folder. And inside there's a WL file that contains delayed now. So now it works. So now the kernels are alive. You can see the date updated. And the cool thing is that basically now that I know where the file is on my file system, I can just put something in it, but it's not the date. And if I refresh the page, I will eventually, but again, remember this is emulated, and get a form function. Yes. So basically, seamless communication between outside of the container, inside of the container. Very easy to do web development for this. Yeah. Remote server. So now, if the server is not sitting on your machine, the workflow is the same, and you can just deploy something to it. Well, first you connect, then you deploy something to it. You get an API function. This API function wants parameters, and you can, something bigger, and you get the stuff that. Why is this useful? Because maybe you have a big, large website that you've done with a bunch of stuff that is not Mathematica, but there is one thing that you just can't do with Java because Java doesn't support very large integers or cannot factor polynomials or whatever. Like I've heard people who are doing things like doing code equivalence for assessment of the answers of their students. And the whole front end is built using React. But there is just that last thing that you can only do with Wolfram language. And this is why you put an API there. And so, yeah, and you can, this is like a machine that has 4 cores and 4 kernels. And now we're launching a computation that is like at the same time hitting it with 16 requests. So basically 4 requests per kernel. And it took 1 second, but it knows how to queue them and how not to choke when you get more requests than kernels. And so it's good for even larger volume operations. And you might say, oh, but you put this on a beefy machine somewhere. No, it's here. It's running on Raspberry Pi. So this factorial API is just running Raspberry Pi, and it can get hit with 16 requests at the same time and still not choke. So you can really, really, really run it anywhere. And yeah, ouch. Okay, so yeah, I think, where's the arrow? How do I go forward? No, I think that's pretty much it. And like, I have plenty of time left. The person after me, which is also me, is gonna be very happy to have more time. But yeah, I'm happy also to take questions and take this time to do the poll, because the poll is actually really useful, I guess, for us to figure out what you use the cloud for. Yes. So this is okay. So I'm going to repeat the question for the folks at home, or for the future folks watching this. So right now we have. I think you said we have Web Mathematica. We don't have Web Mathematica anymore. We have Wolfram Engine, which doesn't serve stuff. We have Wolfram, yeah, I know. Wolfram Engine doesn't serve stuff. It's just basically a version of Mathematica without the front end, more or less. Then we have Wolfram Web Engine, which is the simplest way to serve your web content using Wolfram Engine. And there's also another version, which is Wolfram Web Engine for Python, which has been out for a while, and it's open source. You can go check it out on GitHub. Ricardo wrote it there. So if it doesn't work, go complain to him. And then WAS is basically like a whole cluster of Wolfram Web Engine. So WAS is something where if you need scalability, you need, like, it starts out, I think, at 8 nodes. So it's like you have really a lot of stuff hitting your server. You need to have multiple computers and a load balancer. That's what WAS does. Of course, if you know how to build a load balancer yourself, you can buy this and build your own load balancer. And basically, this Wolfram Web Engine is kind of the underlying technology that we've also been using for building the cloud itself. So like in the end, also EPC has this inside, more or less. So yeah, does that answer your question? And so yeah, if you want something beefier, get WAS. If you want something beefier and notebook, get an EPC. If you are serving 2 API functions, this is good for you. Or 10. Yes. So Joel is asking, can you load the code from this that you've deployed? And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, you have a folder of stuff. You can put really whatever code you want there. So if you don't want it to be in the in the root web app thing, and so that it's also visible to user, but you want to put it somewhere else in your file system, there are no limitations on the file system. So if you want to need some other package that you saved in a folder that's not visible to end users, there's no limitations to what your kernel can read on disk or write on disk. You have to put in place those limitations. So yes, if you have a large package that sits in a directory, you can get it and then run the API with that code. So it doesn't have to live all in the deployed object. Yes. I think yes. I mean, it's again, load balancing strategies. I'm not entirely sure that on a single machine you have any. You just have a pool of kernels and right, Todd? Yeah. Yeah. So so you again, if you know what you're doing and you put it somewhere, then it will fit in that because it's just another Java servlet. If you don't know what you're doing, probably you should buy WAS because because we've done that part. That's, I mean, it's the whole point of WAS is to get you from this to load balancing, etc. The limitation of WAS is that, as you said, if you have a whole infrastructure of other stuff, WAS has to run separated on their own machine, separated from that. And so, if for whatever reason you're crazy enough that you want the database to run on the same node as the compute node, you can't do that with WAS. But maybe that's just bad practice. So maybe you should keep them isolated anyway. But yeah, and if you want to shoot yourself in the foot here, you very much can. So yeah. Yes. Anton. Okay. So the question is, can we have embedded notebook with this? No, we don't have notebooks here. So the part of code that does, all the rendering, the document model, etc., that's specific to EPC. So you cannot do that. I wonder if we could set something up where you have an EPC and you point this as a remote kernel. So that is something doable. Like, for example, a Docker image which uses whatever. Yeah, but you still need a cloud for the notebook Chrome. But then maybe you can tell that if it's an APC that's more configurable, then you can tell it to point to kernels elsewhere. Yes, Bob. So the question was, sorry, I repeat for the folks in the future, is the kernel stateful? Yes, but I mean, that can be changed. I mean, out of the box, if you pollute the state of your kernel with stuff, then you keep the data in the kernel state, but that can be changed. So Anton asks, can we have different kernels for different users? And there is a way to do that. So basically, but you have to set it up. So basically, in the MSP configuration file, you can set up kernel pools. So you would make kernel pools of 1, and then map them. I'm pretty sure you can map them to URLs, and then you can give a security constraint on that URL, so that you make something like localhost/Anton, and only you have the password to that, and you get your own kernel pool of 1 kernel or 4, I don't know, and I get /Carlo, and I get another kernel pool. Yes. It's what? It's available for use. Almost. No, yeah, no, this week maybe. No, like there are a couple of kinks that we need to iron out in terms of, especially the service deploy thing is not yet completely finished. But if you're using it with rsync, it's pretty much ready. And in fact, the fine folks at WTG are already, starting to work on it on several projects. And we are talking about, so like, for example, the Docker image should be put online very soon.
Yeah, you can put it in the Docker repository.
Yes. No, yeah, it will go up soon in the Docker Hub, official Docker Hub of Wolfram research. Yes, Bob.
The licensing just like normal.
Okay, the licensing is stuff that is still being figured out by people who have different skill set than mine. Because unfortunately I'm not very good at this, but the idea is that this is going to be so basically you need to get a license per kernel that is much cheaper than EPC or was licensing per kernel, and it's closer to what. So it's basically going to be like Wolfram Engine. So let me start again. Wolfram Engine is free to try out. Not Wolfram Web Engine, Wolfram Engine. So if you want to use it for production use, you have to pay a little bit more to get Wolfram Engine. And this is probably be either the same price as Wolfram Engine for production use, or a bit more than that because it's for web use. But the idea is that you're not gonna buy the servlet part, you're gonna buy kernels that have a special entitlement. This is the idea. Okay. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to offer a comment about, having.
Yes. So for those of you who didn't hear, Itai had the experience of being in a small college where they gave the keys to the server to mathematicians, and obviously they had only one server, so everything was running at the same time on it. So for them, it's attractive. Whether or not it's a good idea, it's up to them to decide. Again, this is a product where we treat people like responsible adults.